All right, let's dive into one of Shakespeare's most magical and honestly most debated plays, The Tempest. It's a story that's built around a huge question. If you had the power to get the perfect revenge on the people who completely ruined your life, what would you do? It's this incredible tale about a betrayed duke, an enchanted island, and, that ultimate choice between vengeance and forgiveness.
So, this play was written around 1611, and that date is a pretty big deal. Why? Because The Tempest is widely considered the very last play Shakespeare wrote all by himself. And that fact just gives it this, this really special feeling. You can't help but see it as the master playwright's grand farewell to the stage, like he's casting one last incredible spell before taking his final bow.
Okay, to really get what makes this play tick, you've got to put yourself in the main character's shoes. Really imagine it. You've been totally betrayed, stripped of your title, your home, everything, literally left for dead. But then, years go by, and suddenly you get the power to control the destiny of those very same enemies. The question is, what's your next move?
And that question, what do you do with that kind of absolute power, is really the core of the whole story. But to understand the choice our hero has to make, we've got to go back. We have to look at the bitter betrayal that kicked off this entire magical revenge plot in the first place.
So, let's meet our protagonist. This is Prospero. He's the rightful Duke of Milan, or at least he was. But he was always so much more than just a duke. He was a scholar, a father, and crucially, a powerful magician. And it was his total obsession with his secret studies that, well, it ended up being his downfall.
So here's the backstory, how it all fell apart. We rewind 12 years. Prospero is so buried in his books, so obsessed with his magic, that he basically hands over the keys to the kingdom to his brother Antonio. Big mistake. Huge. Antonio's hunger for power just consumes him. He teams up with a rival, King Alonso of Naples, to steal the whole dukedom. And what do they do with Prospero and his tiny daughter, Miranda? They stick him on a busted-up boat and cast them out to sea. Incredibly, they survive and end up washed ashore on this strange, remote, and very enchanted island.
But this wasn't just some deserted island you see on a postcard. Oh no. This place was buzzing with magic, inhabited by all sorts of spirits and weird creatures, who were about to get a new boss, in this exiled duke.
So, on this island, Prospero ends up in charge of two very different beings, and understanding them is key to the whole play. First up, you've got Ariel, this amazing, graceful spirit of the air. Prospero freed him from a witch's curse, so Ariel kinda owes him one and carries out his magical orders, all while dreaming of the day he'll finally be set free for good. And then, you've got Caliban. He's the son of that same witch, and he's resentful, earthy, and forced into slavery. Their relationship is all about brute force and simmering hatred.
For 12 long years, Prospero does three things. He raises his daughter, he gets really good at magic, and he waits. He waits for the perfect moment for his revenge. And then one day, you could call it fate, or maybe you could call it Prospero's own masterful plan, but his enemies are delivered right to his doorstep.
And this is where the play's title comes from. A tempest is just another word for a violent, chaotic, windy storm. It's supposed to be pure, untamable chaos. But the brilliant twist in this story is that this particular tempest, this huge storm of destruction, it's not natural at all. In fact, it's under complete and total control.
So, from his lookout spot on the island, Prospero sees a ship sailing by. And who's on it? Well, what do you know? It's the exact men who betrayed him. His brother Antonio, King Alonso, and also the king's son Ferdinand. This is his moment. Using Ariel as his magical agent, Prospero conjures up this insane, furious storm that just rips their ship apart, throwing every single person on board into the raging ocean.
But, and this is super important, this storm isn't designed to kill anyone. Nope, it's more like the opening act of a very elaborate play with the island as the stage and Prospero as the director. See, he doesn't just want them dead, he wants to put them through a kind of psychological test to make them face the ugly truth of what they did to him.
And like a master director, Prospero sets his whole plan in motion. First, he has Ariel scatter all the survivors into separate groups. Then, he arranges a supposedly accidental meeting between Prince Ferdinand and his daughter Miranda. And, just like he predicted, they fall in love at first sight. Meanwhile, for his real enemies, Antonio and Alonso, he cooks up terrifying magical illusions to mess with their minds and stir up their guilt. He even has to handle a ridiculous little murder plot from Caliban and a couple of drunk sailors. Every single person becomes an actor in his grand, carefully crafted play.
And all of this brings us to the climax, the turning point of the entire play. Prospero's plan? It worked perfectly. His enemies are broken, they're confused, they're powerless, they are completely at his mercy. The stage is set for his final move.
And here we are back at that huge central question. After 12 years of waiting and plotting with total power in his hands, what's he going to do? Is he going to choose the path of vengeance, a tragic ending full of blood and payback, or will he somehow manage to rise above all that anger and choose a different ending, one of forgiveness?
In this really stunning moment of change, it's actually Ariel, his non-human spirit, who feels sorry for the terrified men, and that makes Prospero take a hard look at himself. He has this epiphany, realizing that the rarer action is in virtue than in vengeance. Basically that it's a greater act to forgive than to get revenge. So he chooses forgiveness, and to make it official, he does something huge. He vows to give up his magic forever, even breaking the staff that gave him all that power.
And with that one decision, it's like the real Tempest, the one inside Prospero, finally calms down. Now he can get to work on the real ending of his play, not by using his power to punish, but by using his mercy to heal and restore order.
So he brings all his enemies together and reveals who he is, the Duke they betrayed all those years ago, and they are stunned. He takes back his title, but instead of punishment, he offers peace. He even unites their two kingdoms by approving the marriage between his daughter, Miranda, and their son, Ferdinand. His last acts on the island are about setting things right. He finally gives his loyal spirit Ariel that freedom he's been wanting for so long. And then he gets ready to sail home, leaving the island and his magic behind for good.
Which leaves us with one last kind of haunting question to think about. When Prospero stands on that stage, gives up his art, and asks the audience for applause to set him free, is that just the character speaking? Or could that be Shakespeare himself, the greatest storyteller of them all, speaking directly through Prospero? Is this his farewell, his goodbye to the magic of the theater? And thinking about that is what turns The Tempest from just a great play into this beautiful, personal, and absolutely perfect final act.